Well, let's talk about an Overwatch comic that came out last year where we explored a specific character, Reaper, Raze.
Way to give away the,
spoiler.
the worst secret in Overwatch. Spoilers.
Retribution.
Overwatch Retribution. Now, I love a good villain origin story, and that's what this comic is. It sets up the moment in the in-game cutscene when Gabriel Reyes shoots Antonio. And what the comic does is it gives Gabriel a more personal, deeper motivation for doing it. And that's what makes a villain great, right? Like, we get their motivations, we relate with them, but it's their methods that are inexcusable. Now, the Overwatch Retribution comic was written by Blizzard's own Matt Burns with art by Grace Shuko. It starts off with a bombing of an Overwatch facility, a Blackwatch facility, and we find out that Gabriel is very close with Gerard Lacroix, and Gerard is critically injured in the bombing. And we see that Gabriel is really torn up by this. He feels a lot of rage and powerlessness that Overwatch can't stop Talon through traditional means. And a really cool thing that the comic does is it visually shows the link between Gabriel sitting by Gerard's hospital bed and the bomb timer. And the pacing of the panels shows that Gabriel is also a bomb waiting to go off, which he does later when he kills Antonio. And the final panel of the comic is shades of what Gabriel will become going down this dark road, Reaper.
The birth of a villain. We've talked about novels, we've talked about comics. Let's talk about cinematics. We had a few that premiered today. One of them was the McCree piece. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Mio Del Rosario was the head storyboard artist on this piece. I'm going to pass this to you, and why don't you walk us through some of the work you did on McCree working with Jason?
Oh, sure thing, Tim. So whenever we start working on a new story, we want to make sure that we create moments and ideas that would help us push the character development forward throughout the narrative. So as storyboard artists, me and my team worked closely with the directors and the writers to help them visualize the flow of these story moments within the narrative. So when Jason gave me his initial pitch on the McCree episode and how he sees it as a classic Western, that gave me an idea on how I would approach the challenges, on how we can develop McCree's character throughout the cinematic. So I want to show you guys some of the storyboards that we did, just to give you guys a thought process and walk you guys through to the approach when we are developing McCree's character in this stage. So this is the very first image that I did for McCree, and if I remember correctly, it took me a few days to get his attitude right in this one image. And I think the real challenge here is finding that balance between preserving what we all know and love about McCree in the game, but at the same time, we want to introduce a new element to his character so that when our audience sees that, they could see him on a different perspective or in a new light. So once I've got this locked down, I was able to make this image as my groundwork or as my foundation in representing McCree throughout the storyboarding process. So, for example, if there's a part in the script where we see, or where it shows that McCree is in a gunfight, or he's taking cover, reloading his gun, or even just as simple as standing still and delivering his lines.
He looks cool.
Yeah, he's definitely looking cool. I was able to easily visualize these moments because I already took my time in exploring and understanding his personality during those early stages. And going back to that very first image that I drew, I was able to create a consistent visual language for his actions and behavior all throughout the piece. So another element that I think helps in the development of our characters' personality is the environment where the story takes place. As storytellers, we want to make sure that we don't dictate the actions or the behavior of our hero, but rather we want to introduce events and moments and see how they would react to it. For example, in the very beginning of the episode, when we hear the explosion outside of the diner, we actually feel that there's danger and chaos outside waiting for McCree. But if we look back at how he responds to that, he just kept his cool and he just
ate his pie.
Yeah, he just ate his pie, maintained his laid-back attitude. And one of the moments that I like is that he even managed to leave a tip on the table before walking out.
It's a good guy.
He's
a solid guy.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
And
20%.
it's those simple moments where we can show our character's personality that we don't necessarily see in the game. And that creates them to be more grounded and relatable to our audience. So with that said, and with all those things in mind, through a collaborative process with the people involved in the project, we were able to establish McCree's character and personality in this early stages of development. And hopefully the episode, we get to highlight those traits that makes him special in the Overwatch universe.
That's awesome. Speaking of characters, this guy right here with the thing now, Jason Hill, you did that in
me?
piece. Yeah, how about you take it away and talk to us about, developing the gang.
So way back in the before time, in the long, long ago, I've aged so much since we started this.
We all have.
We all have, yeah, we all have.
Yeah.
George came to me at one point. He's like, "Hey, do you like westerns?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like westerns. Of course, I like westerns." He's like, "You want to do a western?" Am I doing that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, perfect.
You like cowboys, kid?
You like cowboys? So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so when somebody approaches you with that and asks you that, it pretty much means McCree at this. You know what you're in for. And so absolutely, I was totally down with that. I'm like, yes, let's do a McCree piece. But at that point, we kind of knew McCree, and I feel like everybody here kind of had a good feeling for who McCree was, his personality and style. I mean, Matt Mercer brings so much to the character with the voice. Just everything about McCree is like, we know who this character is. So the initial pitch was McCree, and there's the train wreck, and he gets the payload at the end with the thing, and he meets the Deadlock Gang. And for me personally, the appeal was figuring out who the Deadlock Gang was. Because for me, again, when I'm reading a comic or watching TV or a movie or anything like that, and there's a group of characters who are pirates or mobsters or bounty hunters or anything like that, and it's a unique group, and you're looking at them going, I want to know more about them. I want those characters' backstories. And we don't always get that, but it's enough to like, just your imagination is just going crazy. And so I really wanted that with the Deadlock Gang. So as the script evolved, before we even started storyboards with Mio, I went to Mio and I was like, okay, we just need what we call basically beat boards. So like there's a couple of beats in the piece that we know we're gonna have. We want you to kind of draw this stuff out and get a feel for it. So I pitched, giant Omnic Enforcer, Enforcer Omnic, because at this point we'd only seen humanoid Omnics. We hadn't seen, and we'd seen Bastion style. We hadn't seen, Omnics can be all shapes and sizes. There's no reason they have to be the same model. So let's do something unique with him. And the leader, I wanted a strong female with just, the wide brim hat and the duster and the lever action rifle and a couple other members of the gang. And so Mio's like, great, got it. And he ran off while we kept kind of churning on the script. And very soon he came back with this image. And this may be the very first image of Ash ever drawn. Yeah. And the first image of Bob ever drawn too, for that matter. But this captured exactly what I was going for. I was like, oh my God, yes, this Omnic in the back with the giant mustache, that's genius. And then, Ash just has so much attitude and personality, and just like, your eye goes right to her. And then we have these other, cool other members of the gang that, they had skull masks and stuff, and that's a little like,
right.
Anyway, but they were still very cool too. So after we did the storyboard process, and after we got the script going and everything was working together, at that point, it was time to do more detailed concepts of Ash. And so we brought on Zhang-Ha Lee, who's one of our concept artists, and she is phenomenal. And so we did the pitch, big broad hat, the duster, the whole thing, and these are the first images, the first concepts of Ash. And they're awesome. They're really cool. Like that was a cool looking character. But it's not an Overwatch character. Overwatch characters, we like to have a little extra juice, a little extra. There's something special, special sauce to them that makes them stand out as something really special. And the more we looked at her, the more kind of realized she kind of looks like a kind of a gothic, like a werewolf hunter or a vampire hunter or something
Bit of a
like
Van
that.
Helsing vibe.
Yeah, so it was something where like, okay, I think we need to potentially look at pushing this farther left or right, but there was one other big problem. The more we looked at it, we realized there was a bigger issue. In both gameplay and cinematics, silhouettes are so important to be able to read a character quickly. If they're running through the scene or if there's an action scene, you want to be able to tell who that character is, who that was. And her color palette and the duster and everything, it's just too much like Reaper. So at that point, we realized we have to explore space. And we asked Shung Ha, just go to town, give us a bunch of different versions of Ash. And so she did. She did 20, 30 versions. These are a couple different versions. The one on the left, these are all the ones we liked a lot. One on the left, fantastic. It's a great design, but it had the same problem with Reapers. It was too much like McCree in both color palette, and it was too much of a kind of that cowgirl, and we did not want a female McCree. Ash needed to stand on her own. We needed something unique and special for her. The second one, a little too punk rock. Cool, but punk rock. The third one, I love the third one. I'm literally going to take this third one, stick it in my back pocket. You will see it again later in something somewhere.
Like a new skin.
Skins. I'm not.
Skin.
Yeah.
Nothing is lost.
Somewhere. It's super. It's fantastic. But the key word, it's super. Actually, was the key word, and she looks like a superhero, not the leader of a biker gang. And so at that point, we're like, okay, we have to kind of start pushing back towards the biker gang. At the next one, we're getting closer, but a little too youthful. Didn't have that kind of the presence that we're looking for out of Ash. The next one on the very end, again, very cool. Went a little steampunk, a little 19s, 20s, 30s mobster style. But they're all super cool, and they all have elements in them that we started to pull from, and eventually we ended up with the final design for Ash, which is a super strong silhouette, just a great character. Like, we saw her, and we're like, yes, this character, I can't wait to see what, this character animated and everything like that. There was one thing we had to change, and that was her hair. Mm-hmm. We had to change her hair, mostly for technical, initially it was for technical reasons. In both game engines and for cinematics, long, flowing, simulated hair is very difficult. So we actually said, okay, let's explore a couple different haircuts. And we kind of gave her this offset bob, that is a pun, the offset bob, but it actually gave her a much more dynamic, stylized, striking look, and much more edgier, and it was like, this is a win. So this was fantastic. So at that point, we had the script, and we have the designs and the storyboards, and we were working on animation, but ultimately, like, what is Ash's origin? Like, who was she?
Especially because she's gonna be a character in the game.
How did she, she's gonna be a character in the game. So just like about 30, 40 minutes ago, we actually debuted Ash's origin piece on the Mythic stage, but we'd like to run it all for you guys right here, right now. Can we roll the clip?
Want to see Ash's origin?
Hold on, let's see it.
Everybody needs a family. Because it's not fair facing the world alone. I don't care how tough you think you are. They should always be there for support, no matter what. In the best of times, they will arm you with the tools to succeed. And in the worst of times, they will understand when things don't really go the way you planned. Now, some people are lucky enough to be born into the perfect family. Others, well, they go out and make one on their own. And once you've done that, anything is possible if everyone pulls their own weight. So, if you want to be part of my family, I do have one little rule. It's my way. Or, well, who am I kidding? It's my way.
So there's a little bit of background on Ash, and I'm sure we'll get to explore her even more in the future. But you can't talk about Ash without talking about the rest of the Deadlock gang. And the Deadlock gang was, again, a group that we wanted to create really unique characters and characters that hopefully we can see again in the future. But more importantly, you can't talk about Ash without talking about Bob.
Oh, yeah.
What about Bob?
What a... So, Mio did the original concepts and drawings for Bob in the storyboards, and everybody just loved him, like, right out of the gate. Like, Bob is my life coach. Bob is my mentor. Bob
There's
is
Bob in every one of us.
but there's a little Bob in everybody. So this was the initial concept for Bob, and this is the final approved design. So what it proved is not only was he my life coach, but he's also apparently a unicorn, because he's super rare in that this never happens in production. You never get a character right from the beginning to the final approved design and be that close, that similar. So we knew that there was something special about Bob. To give another example, here's a very early storyboard of Bob that Mio did. Here's the final shot. So I don't know what to tell you.
It's like you inspired us.
Yes,
Right.
Bob forever.
Essence.
But basically, we also knew that we had to have other members of the gang, and one of the other groups is we actually call them the triplets, and this was a group that we kind of had to put together. That we wanted some characters that could be in the gang, but not upstage Ash and Bob. We kind of wanted to have them so they could be in the background, but actually play an important role. But if you look at the bottom, there's a bunch of different designs there, and some of them got a little too strong, a little too dominant, whatever you want to call it, that they started to come to the foreground. So eventually we pushed them to the background and found a really nice design that let them sit into the shots, felt like Deadlock characters, but also wouldn't take your attention off of whatever Ash was doing or McCree was doing in the moment. And yes, they are StarCraft fans. There was always the StarCraft comic in the actual Route 66 map. So we do have Zeke, Terran, and PT, and they have the right tattoos. There's
Yeah, the
tattoos up there.
appropriate
So yes, definitely StarCraft fans. The final member of the gang was Bars, the sniper. This is another character who's only in about 4 shots, but once the designs started coming through, we're like, these designs are awesome. This character, like every one of these characters could be a hero on their own. But yeah, on the right, you can see just how many different head designs we did for Bars. And none of them are wrong. They're all great. It's just a matter of, like, ultimately, as a group, we're like, we love that one, or that one's the perfect one. So there was one final piece to the Deadlock puzzle for me, and that is, who is Ash? Who's the voice of Ash? When she speaks, like, who brings the character alive? Our animators are doing a fantastic job. She looks great, stuff like that. And Matt Mercer being McCree, he is so strong and talented, and he just brings so much to that character. I need somebody who could go toe-to-toe with Matt Mercer and McCree. So I had an idea for an actress very early on that I wanted to use, but as a director, I didn't want my personal opinions to kind of muddy the waters and be like, oh, this is who I really want. But so we sent out basically a casting call our VO director does. We get a bunch of actresses to audition, and they did phenomenal. There were so many really good, phenomenal actresses. We've been lucky to have any of them, and there's some I'm going to save for other things. Put those in the back pocket too, because we won't talk about that. But my editor Nathan took the final selects. There were about 10. And I think it was on about and we had the image of Ash on the screen. He was playing all the VO lines of all the different actresses, and he got to about the 5th one, and I'm like, that's it, that's Ash. And he just started laughing at me, and I'm like, why are you laughing at me? He's like, you just picked the person who was your original pick back early in production, who you originally wanted, and that was Jennifer Hale. And Jennifer Hale, she is just...
I guess you have good instincts, Jason.
She is... just phenomenal. First of all, being a total sweetheart, but she can bring any character to life. She is, if you've heard her and may not even known you've heard her. So definitely, if you haven't, IMDb her. She's done everything. She was just a treat to work with, and just we are so lucky to actually have been able to get her for this character. The other big plus was that we were actually able to get them in the booth together. And they recorded a lot of their lines together, playing off each other, riffing off of each other, improvising. And so getting to see them together was just a wonderful experience. And I personally really can't wait to see what the game team does with Ash in the future, with Jennifer basically doing the voice for her. So, I mean, it's just a great cast, a great group of characters, and it was a super fun piece to work on.
Begs the question, what happened to Ash? What happened to Bob?
What they're on that payload.
Oh, yeah.
I get that. So this is what happened. It's so infectious within Blizzard. I got this question throughout production because everybody's like, "This is great. But what happened to Ash? And what happened? What happened
You
to
know,
Bob?"
I was just coming into Blizzard when this was starting to be formed, and I was seeing like one of the first animatics. Didn't know very many of the characters, and I was like, "But what happened to the one with the derby? Is he okay?"
And that's, you know, Ash, that team is infectious, and there's something we all kind of want to see a little bit more. We want just a little bit more time with them. We want to see something, you know, else with them. And you know, we would definitely like to show you something else with them, but
You're really milking this.
but I am. I mean, what are the chances that we would make a cinematic?
I don't know.
One panel for just you guys.
What are the odds?
Bonus.
I think the odds are actually pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Pretty good.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The
boys and
epilogue?
girls, omnics of all ages, we'd like to present to you Road Trip. Please roll the clip.
Really nice going, Bob. That could have been an easy score, but no! McCree shows his stupid mug and everyone just falls to complete pieces. I should have just put a bullet in him the minute he showed up. That's my bike! McCree! Oh, I hate that guy. What are you looking at?
All right, everyone, we have time for some Q&A. We set aside 20 minutes or so, and I believe during this time,
Hi, when you guys are working on new characters or updating character designs, is there a certain point at which the character seems to take over their own design?
you could probably speak to that a little bit on.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time the game teams are the ones who are developing their own, the characters and doing the designs and stuff like that, and they usually hand us a design for a character. But in a situation like Ash and Bob, that was something like their personalities, once we started seeing drawings from Mio and things like that, and we had brief descriptions on page of like kind of what the attitude was, and we had even some quick lines of just like, maybe this is the kind of what her internal voice is. They came together, those characters specifically came together really quickly as far as like, everybody got it. Everybody's like, we know what kind of character this is. We know what kind of character Bob is. We know, how this plays out. So, I mean, from a design standpoint,
Well, basically, when we were doing those character designs, I just went off with your description. It was such a solid description that I could almost imagine that final look of theirs and how they would play off with McCree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the Overwatch team just put a tremendous amount of like, trust in us to do that.
They did.
I remember.
They did. And that was like, start from scratch. Basically, we started the story without any character models, basically. Only a description from the writing team and from our director.
So, I mean, sometimes it really is the game team's just, here's the design's already given to us. That's sometimes easier, and sometimes we have to find the voice for those characters too. Yeah. But I mean, you can definitely kind of, is there anything you can speak to on as far as helping to find the voice for the characters and the designs?
Certainly. I think it's all part of the whole package, right? It's the teams coming together. It's these rooms. Sometimes someone would throw out an image or a reference, or as you said, someone would write a line. And the more we beat these characters up and stories up, they come to life. And it's interesting that Ash, to your question, I think Ash was someone, she took ownership of her own creation, right?
She really did.
I mean, it was great because, like, I remember when we were breaking story for that Origins piece, we were talking a lot about Ash and Bob, and we were like, Bob should have always been a part of her life in some way, and I think that's how we ended up with Bob the Butler. Like, basically, the character that took care of her when she was a child, when her parents weren't around.
He's a big omnic butler, B.O.B., or big omnic bodyguard, whichever one you want.
Yeah.
So similar question, but you've talked a lot about the varying time frames for character inspiration. What criteria do you look for to actually make it a character, a playable character?
What?
Playable character? Like
playable one?
in-game?
Like in game.
In-game, yeah. Well, we usually take our cues from game team, like
Right.
their requests, the needs of the game or the level or the gameplay. So we work closely with them, but those usually come kind of over the transom to us.
I think what was interesting was they saw Ash and they saw that as an opportunity to take a character that we developed and bring that into the game, which I think that might have been one of the first opportunities we'd ever done.
I can only offhand, there may be more. The only other character I can think of that this happened was, I think, Tychus Finley, which we created for the original StarCraft 2 cinematic when he was getting suited up. And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, oh, he's awesome. Let's put him in the game. But yeah, something about Ash. We were working on Ash because we were just like, we needed a good villain for McCree at the time, and then and she evolved, and we were falling in love with her. But then we started to hear the whispers from across the street of like, they're really in love with her. Wait,
Yeah.
they have multiple people. Jeff Goodman, one of the designers over there, they saw the storyboards that Mio did, and multiple designers over there on their own went out and started building design docs for Ash to go, we love this character, we want to make something with her. And then they all like emailed it almost at the same time to each other and like, I think we got something here that we want to run with. So this, Ash and Bob were something that were created on necessity originally, but then over the course of production was like, you know what? This is something more. It was something special. So, and hopefully we'll get more of that stuff.
Yeah, and them choosing to make Bob the ult for Ash was like the icing on the cake.
That was the icing.